Hey guys, it's Miss Silva. For this lesson 1.5, we are going to be solving literal equations. So our learning target is that we can solve for literal equations. In order for us to be successful, we need to be able to identify the variable that we're solving for, read the expression beginning with the variable. We're going to use inverse operations to undo the last operation. Then we're going to repeat the steps until the variable we're solving for is isolated. And of course, at the end, we're going to simplify as necessary. So before we continue, we're going to find out what a literal equation is. Well, it's an equation which consists primarily of variables. So if you've seen an equation where there's a lot of variables or letters, those are considered literal equations. Now, when we solve for literal equations, we're basically solving for only one of those variables. So we're going to be moving the equations around or the terms around in order to isolate the one variable we are solving for. We are given W and we're also given P, but we want to solve for L. So following our success criteria, we first have to identify the variable. The variable here we're solving for is L. Then we're going to read the expression. Now we're going to read the expression that has the variable included in it. So in this case, it's the right side of the equal sign. So we have L. We're starting with L. L is being multiplied by 2, and then we are adding 2W to it. So since it's the last thing that we said, that's the last operation that happened, so we need to undo that last operation. So if we're adding to W, the inverse of adding to W is subtracting to W. Now when we subtract 2W, that gives us 0, so we're left with 2L on the right side. And because we can't combine P and negative 2W, we write the expression to represent it. Now we're going to repeat the steps because we still don't have that L isolated. So let's reread the equation. We've got 2 times L, and in order to undo that times 2, we need to use the inverse, which is divide by 2. And we're left with L on the right side. Sometimes you'll see your answer in this form, or you'll see your answer more simplified, which is what we're going to do next. When you see an expression like this, these two terms in the numerator are basically sharing the denominator. So we're going to rewrite them where they're not sharing that denominator. So I'm going to start with P, which is the first term, and then I'm going to have it divided by 2. Then we're going to get the second term minus 2W, and that one is also being divided by its own 2. And then as always, we're going to simplify. If there's no number in front of the variable, we know that it is an understood 1, so we're going to write it as 1/2 P minus, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we get W, and that's equal to L. Now you can write it that way, or we can start with L is equal to 1/2 P minus W. Let's look at the next example. In this problem, we're going to be solving for y, so that's identifying the variable. And now we're going to read the expression where that variable is. So that y is being multiplied by 2, and then we're adding 2x to it. So let's go ahead and undo that adding of 2x, which is subtract 2x. That's the inverse. Gives us 0. We have 2y is equal to, because we can't combine 14 and negative 2x, we're going to write the expression to represent it. We're not done yet. The y is not isolated, so we start again. We're repeating our steps. 2 times y. So the inverse of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. We get y is equal to this expression over here, but we're going to separate it. Negative 2x divided by 2. And then my second term is 14, and that one is also being divided by 2. We're simplifying. Y is equal to negative 2 divided by 2. That gives us 1. So negative 1x. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. Go ahead and pause the video and attempt to do this next one on your own. Once you're done, push play to see the solution. Right, now it's time to check your answer. Here we're solving for y. Y is being multiplied by 3, and then we're adding x. So to undo adding x, we're going to subtract x to both sides of the equal. We get 3y equals, we can't combine 12 and negative x, so I'm going to write the expression that represents it. I'm just going to write that 1 for now. And repeat the steps. We've got 3 times y, and to undo the times 3, we're going to divide by 3. And let's go ahead and separate this fraction. We've got negative 1x over 3 plus 12 over 3, and that gives us negative 1 over 3x plus 4. Okay, let's look at this next one. It's a little bit different. For this one, we are solving for m, so we're identifying our variable. Now let's read the expression beginning with the variable. We've got m, we're dividing it by a, and then we're adding b. So the last thing we said was adding b, so we're going to subtract b from both sides of the equal sign. These cancel. Z minus b cannot be combined, so we write the expression to represent it, which is z minus b is m divided by a. Again, we're going to repeat the process. We've got m, we're dividing it by a, and since the last thing is dividing by a, we're going to undo it by multiplying it by a. Move it on this side, so we get a z minus b is equal to your m. Okay, now that we have our m isolated, then our answer again could be seen like this, or we're going to go that step further to simplify it. And because we have parentheses, we know we're going to distribute. So we've got a times z, because we cannot really multiply them. We don't know their value. We're just going to write az. Then we're going to do the same thing with a times negative b. Again, we don't know their value, so we write the expression to represent it, which is minus a times b. And that gives us m. So remember, you can see it one of two ways. You can see it where the distribution hadn't happened, or you can see it where it has happened. All right, and then lastly, the last example, here we're going to be solving for a. And notice this note over here, when multiple numbers are being multiplied, we can divide all of them at the same time. That into play in a bit. So let's start with reading the expression. We've got a times 12 times m, all of it divided by k. So since the last thing we said was to all divide by k, we're going to multiply all of it by k. We're going to do it to both sides. So we're left with 12am is equal to k. Let's isolate that a again. We have 12 times a times m. So to undo that multiplication of 12 and m, we're going to divide by 12 and m. Remember, we can divide all of them at the same time. Then we're going to divide the right side by 12m. These cancel because they give us 1, and we have a is equal to 4k divided by 12m. Remember, we always want to simplify if possible. So we've got a is equal to 4 divided by 12. We can divide both numbers by 3. I'm sorry, by 4. This gives us 1. This gives us 3. So we're left with 1k divided by 3m. Okay, that's it for this lesson. Go ahead and go practice. Good luck.